Well, a very good afternoon to you, Mark Hogan here for Weather and Climate 3 Days of Mark Hogan and firsthandweather.com. I appreciate you clicking on to the Sunday edition of the video blog, the long range discussion. And we have, of course, seen a brutal week of winter weather across the entire continent of Europe. In fact, we've seen, first of all, of course, the heavy snow across the southeastern part of the continent, and then followed by that with severe, brutally cold temperatures. And, of course, many deaths attributed to that cold and snow. But it certainly, as the week progressed, we've seen that cold air continue to bleed westwards across the continent, eventually reaching the Low Countries. We've seen heavy snow across Belgium and the Netherlands. And basically what followed that was quite astonishing cold, really actually cold that caught myself off guard, because after that heavy snow fell during the day on Friday, causing quite a nasty commute for such cities as Brussels, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Eindhoven. Following that was very, very severe cold. Now that cold over Germany and Poland that was sending temperatures into the deep into the -20s, and of course for Poland -32 Celsius. That snow and that fresh blanket allowed a free flow of that core cold, severe cold, to then push further and further west. And of course, we've seen temperatures on Saturday morning down to 0 Fahrenheit in Amsterdam. That's -18 in Celsius. And I believe there was a location in eastern parts of the Netherlands that dropped to -22.9 Celsius. That's -9 in Fahrenheit. And it was the coldest, in fact, in 27 years for the Netherlands. So brutally cold. It was an astonishingly cold, so close to the North Sea. Now, over in the British Isles, as the system pushed in from the west, bringing that milder air, particularly to Scotland and the northwest of England, of course, the colder continental air, at least a slightly more modified version of that, was sitting over England. And of course, the deeper atmosphere of cold over England allowed snow to fall rather than rain. And of course, we've seen a pretty decent fall, really. Anywhere from 2 to as much as 6 inches of snow. So it was a decent snowfall, and of course, the deeper column of cold over England really did allow that precipitation to fall as snow. But certainly, if you looked at the map, actually the North Sea separated truly frigid air with very cold air. The temperature dropped down to -12.4 across parts of this. I think it was Oxfordshire, down in South Newington. But certainly, as cold as that might be, it certainly is nothing anywhere near as cold as what even the Netherlands were. It was almost doubly as cold, in fact. But certainly, if you look at the Arctic Oscillation, we can understand why things have changed so dramatically. Of course, the entire continent of Europe was very mild to start with. In fact, there was a lot of people speculating whether we would actually see a winter this year. But I always held to the idea that I believed eventually, and of course the timing of the cold away back in the summer was out by several weeks, of course, because of course we didn't see the cold and snow arrive until just recently across particularly the British Isles. But certainly for Europe, that cold did come with a vengeance after that warm start, that falsifying start. And you can understand why it tanked from a very strongly positive, persistently positive, right up until the 21st of January, really, if you notice that. Then it dropped well deep into the negative. And of course, the trough, very large, deep polar trough set up over Europe, starting off with heavy snow across the Balkans, into the Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania. Followed by that was that brutally severe cold as that massive Arctic high sat over Siberia, covered the northern top of Europe as well. And of course the flow underneath that from a strong easterly forced all that Siberian air across the continent. Now, you ask yourself the question, are we going to see much more in terms of the cold and snow? Is it going to ease? Some sources say that, it will start to modify. I actually disagree completely with that, and I believe we have got, this upcoming week, the return of a fresh push of Siberian air, and the latest European model actually basically confirms this idea. Now this is actually the current upper level map for today. Notice here the cold, the modified cold over the British Isles, and of course that low level continental air will hang over the snowpack of England, keeping temperatures suppressed tonight, the next couple of days. In fact, notice here Germany and Poland, into France, down into parts of Spain as well. We've got that cold residual air. But notice here, folks, while you look at this at face value, it looks as if southeastern and eastern parts of Europe are starting to warm up. That is not going to be the case, unfortunately. And of course, we've got deep snow cover here over this region. So that, of course, will help refrigerate that air from bottom up. But you notice here as well that the flow is coming out of the southwest. We've got a major snowstorm, folks, impacting this region all the way from Italy right the way up through the Balkans, the Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania, all the way up into western parts of Russia. Now, you've got, of course, the cold air. The core of that cold is now sitting over the Baltic nations, the Baltic Sea, up into Scandinavia. We're going to be seeing temperatures potentially the coldest of the season so far up across Scandinavia. A frigid looking pattern for Scandinavia for sure. But let's have a quick look at Monday, and you notice that the subtle changes. Of course, you've got the what looks to be milder air over the southeastern part of Europe, the cold air over central and western parts, and of course up into Scandinavia as well. But look at the edge of this map here, folks. Here is a large upper level low, a polar low, that's sweeping out of Kazakhstan, out of Asia as well. And you notice here, as I skip through, the cold air remains over central and western parts of Europe, but this upper level low becomes a cut-off upper low, and within it supports some brutally frigid cold air. That, folks, is actually going to be the pinwheel in terms of cycling frigid air back into the continent over the course of this upcoming week, I think. Now, this is looking at Wednesday. Notice here, yes, you don't have the same colours as you did, of course, last week over Europe, or, of course, at the moment. But this, folks, is still not a warm-looking Europe. It will remain pretty cold, to say the least, because remember here, you've got snow on the ground now across the majority of the mainland, and that, coinciding with a modestly cold air mass, will remain, keep Europe basically in the freezer, I believe. But let's have a look at Thursday. Notice here, this upper low looks as if it's intensifying. Now what that will do is, it's actually pulling cold, frigid air from parts of Siberia into Europe. Now you notice here the blues are starting to show again over the continent. Skipping ahead through it, Saturday, look at that. It's starting to actually push more into Europe. If that's sitting over Moscow, you're talking about minus 30 to minus 40 Fahrenheit across parts of Western Russia. Moscow, folks, is going to see back into the frigid, brutally cold air by probably around Friday and Saturday of this upcoming week, basically. So look at Europe here, eastern parts of the continent, once again in the frigid cold air. That is, of course, a concern. You've also got another upper low at the base of the trough here over France. So British Isles again, you might be looking at yet another potential for heavy snow, very cold easterly winds. Let's look at Monday here. You notice the upper low remains over Eastern Europe, western parts of Russia, into the Ukraine, Poland, Germany. You've got a resurge of very, very brutally cold air. British Isles, yeah, you're looking milder again, but folks, this is of concern to me because we've seen a brutal cold period so far, and I think it looks very highly likely that this Siberian, another fresh push of Siberian frigid cold will return from eastern parts of Europe westwards across the continent. And what I think with this next secondary surge will do, now look at that there, this is for Wednesday the 15th, and I'm very concerned about the period from about Wednesday the 15th of February onwards. That is, folks, is when I think more and all of the British Isles and eventually Ireland as well will see more widespread snow, and of course we will start to see, now the models are suggesting that the North Atlantic Oscillation will start to tank negative, and with this type of setup, with the push of very cold air over Europe, with a negative North Atlantic Oscillation, expecting a blocking high over the North Atlantic and Greenland, this would then basically it would start to evolve this type of setup. You get the ridge up over top, locks in this cold air. Now yes folks, we are starting to approach the more latter stages of this winter, but just because we had a very mild start doesn't mean to say we can't have a very cold end to it. And I do think we're going to have a dramatic cold spell over the British Isles and Ireland by around the 15th of February, and that could well last right up until the early or mid part of March. Yes, a late spring is likely for the British Isles this year, and I do think eventually the core of the cold, like in December of 2010, will start to focus itself over Western Europe, including the British Isles and Ireland. Now folks, I've had umpteen questions about where can we expect snow. With this type of pattern, snow would have a big increase basically in likelihood of seeing snow in your area, but individual locations at this time is far too out. It would be silly of me to say yes, you're going to see snow. It's impossible to tell, but given what I'm seeing now folks, your chances of seeing snow increases dramatically. So continue to keep checking back to my blog, First Hand Weather, and as well as that, follow on Facebook and Twitter for very frequent and the latest updates available. Have a great evening folks, bye bye.